Question 1. Performance analysis shows that the current hiring process at Lowe's is taking longer than anticipated, leading to increased recruitment costs. The executive team is looking for ways to streamline the process and reduce expenses associated with candidate selection. Which of the following approaches best balances the need for cost reduction with maintaining the quality and fairness of the hiring process? Option A. Implement a fully automated screening and selection system that requires no human intervention to maximize efficiency and minimize personnel costs. Option B. Authorize the finance department to unilaterally implement cost-saving measures within the recruitment budget, prioritizing the lowest expenditure regardless of process impact. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of each stage of the hiring process to identify redundancies or opportunities for optimization, involving HR, hiring managers, and relevant department heads to ensure all perspectives are considered before implementing any changes. Option D. Immediately eliminate one round of interviews for all positions to reduce interviewer time and associated costs. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive review of each stage of the hiring process to identify redundancies or opportunities for optimization, involving HR, hiring managers, and relevant department heads to ensure all perspectives are considered before implementing any changes. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for cost reduction with the long-term implications of employee morale, productivity, and adherence to Lowe's established hiring practices and ethical standards. A hasty decision based solely on cost could lead to unintended negative consequences, impacting the overall effectiveness of the hiring process and potentially violating internal policies or even implied contractual obligations to candidates. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any changes are implemented thoughtfully and ethically. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, data-driven, and collaborative review of the current hiring process before implementing any changes. This aligns with Lowe's commitment to fair and effective hiring, as well as responsible resource management. By involving relevant stakeholders, including HR, hiring managers, and potentially legal/compliance teams, Lowe's ensures that any proposed adjustments are evaluated not only for cost savings, but also for their impact on candidate experience, diversity goals, and compliance with internal policies and any applicable employment laws. This systematic approach minimizes the risk of making a decision that could negatively affect the company's reputation or operational efficiency. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately reducing the number of interview stages to cut down on interviewer time and associated costs. This is professionally unacceptable because it bypasses a critical evaluation of whether each interview stage serves a distinct and necessary purpose in assessing candidate suitability. Such a reduction could lead to hiring less qualified individuals, increasing turnover, and ultimately costing the company more in the long run due to poor hires and the need for repeated recruitment. It also fails to consider the candidate experience, which is crucial for attracting top talent. Another incorrect approach is to solely rely on automated screening tools without human oversight to identify cost savings. Automation can be efficient, and over-reliance without human review can lead to the exclusion of qualified candidates who may not fit the algorithm's parameters perfectly, but possess valuable skills or potential. This can result in a less diverse workforce and missed opportunities to hire exceptional talent. Ethically, it raises concerns about fairness and potential bias embedded within the algorithms, which could lead to discriminatory hiring practices, even if unintentional. A third incorrect approach is to delegate the decision-making solely to the finance department without input from HR or operational leaders. Finance's primary focus is cost, which is important, but it may overlook the operational and human capital implications of hiring process changes. This siloed decision-making can lead to solutions that are financially sound in the short term, but detrimental to the quality of hires, employee engagement, and the overall effectiveness of the recruitment function, potentially violating internal policies that mandate cross-departmental collaboration in significant operational changes. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with clearly defining the problem and its objectives. This involves gathering data, understanding the current state and identifying potential solutions. Next, they should evaluate each potential solution against multiple criteria, including cost-effectiveness, impact on quality, candidate experience, diversity, and compliance with internal policies and external regulation. Collaboration with relevant stakeholders is crucial to gain diverse perspectives and ensure buy-in. Finally, a pilot program or phased implementation can be used to test the chosen solution before full rollout, allowing for adjustments based on real-world results. This iterative and comprehensive approach ensures that decisions are not only efficient, but also strategically sound and ethically responsible. Question 2. System analysis indicates a customer is inquiring about a specific product they recall seeing advertised, but the product has been discontinued and is no longer in stock. The associate is aware of the discontinuation. What is the most appropriate course of action for the associate to take? Option A. Assure the customer that the item will be located and delivered, even if it means searching external sources or making special arrangements. Option B. Tell the customer that their memory of the advertisement must be mistaken and that the product was never available. Option C. Offer a completely unrelated product as a substitute without inquiring about the customer's specific needs for the original item. Option D. Politely inform the customer that the product has been discontinued and is no longer stocked, and then offer to help them find a suitable alternative product that meets their needs. The correct answer is D. Politely inform the customer that the product has been discontinued and is no longer stocked, and then offer to help them find a suitable alternative product that meets their needs. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing customer service with adherence to company policy and potential legal implications. A customer is requesting a product that is not currently stocked and is being discontinued, but they believe they saw it advertised. The challenge lies in managing customer expectations, preventing potential misrepresentation, and ensuring the associate's actions align with Lowe's operational guidelines and consumer protection principles. The associate must navigate a situation where a customer's perception conflicts with current inventory and product lifecycle status. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves empathetically acknowledging the customer's request and their recollection of the advertisement, while clearly and politely explaining the current product status. This includes informing them that the item is no longer stocked and has been discontinued. Offering viable alternatives that meet similar needs demonstrates a commitment to customer satisfaction and problem-solving, aligning with best practices in retail customer service. This approach respects the customer's experience while upholding company policy and avoiding the sale of a product that cannot be fulfilled, thereby preventing future dissatisfaction and potential disputes. It also implicitly adheres to principles of fair advertising and consumer rights by not misleading the customer about product availability. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to promise to find the discontinued item or to suggest it might be available elsewhere without verification. This is professionally unacceptable because it creates false expectations and could lead to significant customer disappointment and frustration when the item cannot be located. Ethically, it borders on misrepresentation, as the associate is implying availability that does not exist. This could also lead to a breach of trust between the customer and Lowe's. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the customer's claim about the advertisement outright or to be dismissive of their request. This is unprofessional and can damage the customer relationship. It fails to acknowledge the customer's perspective and can lead to a negative perception of Lowe's customer service. From an ethical standpoint, it lacks empathy and respect, which are fundamental to good customer interaction. A third incorrect approach would be to offer a substitute product without understanding the customer's specific needs or confirming if the substitute meets those needs. While offering alternatives is good, doing so without proper assessment can lead to the customer purchasing something unsuitable, resulting in returns and further dissatisfaction. This approach prioritizes closing a sale over ensuring customer satisfaction and can be seen as a failure in due diligence. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a framework that prioritizes clear communication, empathy, and adherence to established policies. When faced with a discrepancy between a customer's request and operational reality, the first step is to actively listen and acknowledge the customer's concern. Next, clearly and concisely explain the situation, referencing factual information, e.g., discontinued status, no longer stocked. Then, proactively offer solutions or alternatives that are genuinely feasible and beneficial to the customer. This process ensures that customer needs are addressed while maintaining operational integrity and ethical standards. Question 3. Analysis of a situation where a customer in the tool aisle is becoming increasingly frustrated because they cannot find a specific type of heavy-duty drill bit they believe they need for an immediate home repair. The customer, visibly agitated, asks an associate if they can just borrow a drill from the display to test the bit, stating they don't want to buy a drill they might not need. Option A. Lightly explain that company policy prohibits the use of display merchandise for personal testing, and offer to help the customer find the correct drill bit or suggest alternative solutions for testing, such as demonstrating the bit's fit in a similar tool if available, or recommending a purchase with a clear return policy. Option B. Tell the customer that they are being unreasonable and that they should just purchase the drill if they are that concerned about it. Option C. Immediately allow the customer to use a drill from the display to test the bit, as customer satisfaction is the top priority. Option D. Inform the customer that you cannot help them and walk away, as it is not your responsibility to solve their personal testing dilemmas. The correct answer is A. Politely explain that company policy prohibits the use of display merchandise for personal testing, and offer to help the customer find the correct drill bit or suggest alternative solutions for testing, such as demonstrating the bit's fit in a similar tool if available, or recommending a purchase with a clear return policy. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an associate to balance customer service with adherence to company policy and potential safety regulations. The associate must quickly assess the situation, understand the customer's intent, and determine the appropriate course of action without alienating the customer or compromising safety. The pressure to make a quick decision in a public-facing role adds to the complexity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach demonstrates best professional practice by prioritizing safety and policy adherence while still attempting to de-escalate the situation and offer alternative solutions. This aligns with Lowe's commitment to a safe shopping environment for both customers and associates, as well as its operational guidelines. By not immediately acceding to the customer's request, the associate avoids potential liability and ensures that company policies designed for safety and security are upheld. Offering to find a suitable alternative or involve a manager shows a commitment to customer service within the established boundaries. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately fulfilling the customer's request without question. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it bypasses established safety protocols and potentially company policies regarding the handling of tools or equipment that could be misused or cause harm. It demonstrates a lack of judgment and an abdication of responsibility to ensure a safe environment. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the customer rudely or without offering any assistance. This is an ethical failure as it demonstrates poor customer service and disrespect. While policy adherence is important, the manner in which it is communicated is crucial for maintaining customer relations and the company's reputation. It also fails to explore potential solutions within policy. A third incorrect approach is to argue with the customer about the policy. This is a professional failure as it escalates the situation unnecessarily and reflects poorly on the associate's ability to handle customer interactions calmly and effectively. It can lead to a negative customer experience and potential complaints, without resolving the core issue of policy adherence and safety. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that involves 1. Situation assessment. Quickly understand the core issue and potential risks. 2. Policy and procedure review. Recall relevant company policies and any applicable safety guidelines. 3. Solution generation. Brainstorm potential actions that align with policy and customer needs. 4. Communication and de-escalation. Clearly and politely communicate decisions and offer alternatives. 5. Escalation, if necessary. Involve a supervisor or manager when the situation is beyond the associate's authority or comfort level. Question 4. The efficiency study reveals that associates can reduce customer interaction time by providing estimated delivery dates and stock availability without direct verification, assuming most information is accurate. A new associate is unsure how to proceed when a customer inquires about the availability of a specific item and its delivery timeline. Option A. State that the item is likely available and will be delivered within the estimated time frame, but acknowledge that this is an assumption. Option B. Provide the estimated delivery date and stock availability based on the system's general estimates, and then proceed with the transaction if the customer wishes to purchase. Option C. Inform the customer that the system provides general estimates and that actual availability and delivery times can only be confirmed after a thorough physical check of the inventory and consultation with the delivery department. Option D. Prioritize completing the sale quickly by giving the most optimistic delivery estimate, even if it's not fully confirmed. The correct answer is B. Provide the estimated delivery date and stock availability based on the system's general estimates, and then proceed with the transaction if the customer wishes to purchase. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the pursuit of operational efficiency with the imperative of adhering to Lowe's internal policies and relevant U.S. consumer protection regulations. The core tension lies in potentially misleading customers about product availability or delivery timelines to achieve perceived efficiency gains, which could erode trust and lead to regulatory scrutiny. Careful judgment is required to ensure that efficiency measures do not compromise transparency and customer satisfaction. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes accurate communication and compliance with established policies. By verifying stock levels and delivery estimates before communicating them to customers, the associate upholds Lowe's commitment to honest representation and avoids potential violations of consumer protection laws, such as those enforced by the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, which prohibit deceptive trade practices. This proactive verification ensures that customer expectations are managed realistically, fostering long-term customer loyalty and mitigating legal and reputational risks. An incorrect approach that involves providing estimated delivery times without verification is professionally unacceptable due to specific regulatory and ethical failures. This practice could be construed as a deceptive trade practice under FTC guidelines, as it misrepresents the availability and delivery of goods. Ethically, it violates the principle of honesty and transparency in customer interactions. Another incorrect approach, which is to inform customers that stock is available even if it's uncertain, directly contravenes the expectation of truthful representation and could lead to significant customer dissatisfaction and potential claims of false advertising. A third incorrect approach, which is to prioritize completing the transaction over accurate information, demonstrates a disregard for both customer welfare and regulatory compliance, prioritizing short-term sales metrics over ethical conduct and legal obligations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding and internalizing Lowe's policies on customer communication and inventory management. This framework should then incorporate an awareness of relevant U.S. consumer protection laws. When faced with a situation where efficiency might conflict with accuracy, the professional should always err on the side of transparency and verification. This involves a step-by-step process. First, confirm the information, stock availability, delivery times. Second, communicate accurate information to the customer. And third, if there are delays or issues, proactively inform the customer and offer solutions. This approach ensures that decisions are grounded in both company policy and legal requirements, promoting ethical conduct and customer trust. Question 5. The evaluation methodology shows that a customer wishes to return a product without a receipt, claiming it was purchased at Lowe's. The customer also states they have used the product, and it is no longer in its original packaging. Based on Lowe's internal return policy and applicable U.S. consumer protection laws, what is the most appropriate course of action for a Lowe's associate? Option A. Lightly explain the return policy regarding the need for proof of purchase and the condition of the item, and explore any compliant options available within policy, such as offering store credit for a verified purchase if applicable, or escalating to a manager if the situation requires further review. Option B. Immediately process a full refund for the customer, as customer satisfaction is the top priority, regardless of policy or proof of purchase. Option C. Accept the return and issue a cash refund, even though the customer cannot provide a receipt and the item is used and out of its original packaging, to avoid a negative customer experience. Option D. Refuse the return outright and inform the customer that no exceptions can be made, without offering any alternative solutions or explanations. The correct answer is A. Politely explain the return policy regarding the need for proof of purchase and the condition of the item, and explore any compliant options available within policy, such as offering store credit for a verified purchase if applicable, or escalating to a manager if the situation requires further review. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an employee to navigate potential conflicts between company policy, customer expectations, and regulatory compliance. The pressure to resolve a customer issue quickly can lead to overlooking critical compliance steps. The challenge lies in balancing customer service with the imperative to adhere to Lowe's internal policies and relevant U.S. consumer protection laws, which are designed to prevent deceptive practices and ensure fair dealings. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to Lowe's established return policy and relevant U.S. consumer protection regulations. This involves verifying the purchase, assessing the item's condition against policy guidelines, and offering solutions that are compliant and fair. This approach represents best professional practice because it upholds the company's integrity, protects both the customer and the company from potential disputes or legal issues, and ensures consistent application of policies. It aligns with the ethical obligation to be truthful and fair in all business dealings, as expected under general U.S. business law and specific consumer protection statutes. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately accepting the return without verification, despite the customer's inability to provide proof of purchase and the item appearing used. This failure to follow established policy and verify the transaction could lead to fraudulent returns, financial losses for Lowe's, and a breach of internal controls designed to prevent such issues. Ethically, it undermines the principle of fairness to other customers who adhere to the policy and to the company itself. Another incorrect approach is to refuse the return outright without exploring any potential compliance solutions, such as offering store credit or an exchange, if policy allows under specific circumstances, or escalating the issue to a supervisor. This rigid stance, while potentially adhering to a strict interpretation of policy, can alienate customers and may not align with broader customer service expectations or the spirit of consumer protection laws that encourage fair resolution of disputes. It fails to demonstrate reasonable accommodation or problem solving. A third incorrect approach is to offer a solution that clearly violates Lowe's return policy or U.S. consumer protection laws, such as offering a full refund for an item that is clearly damaged by the customer beyond normal wear and tear, or accepting a return for an item that is explicitly excluded from returns. This not only breaches company policy, but also exposes Lowe's to potential legal repercussions for deceptive or unfair trade practices. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding and applying Lowe's internal policies and procedures. They should then consider the relevant U.S. consumer protection laws and regulations that govern retail transactions. The decision-making process should involve gathering all necessary information, assessing the situation against policy and legal frameworks, exploring all compliant options, communicating clearly and respectfully with the customer, and escalating the issue if it falls outside their authority or requires specialized knowledge. The goal is to achieve a resolution that is both customer satisfactory and compliant with all applicable rules and ethical standards. Question 6. Research into Lowe's company's internal hiring policies and general employment law principles reveals a situation where an employee is scheduled to interview a candidate for an open position. The employee discovers that the candidate is a close personal friend with whom they have a long-standing relationship. What is the most appropriate course of action for the employee to take? Option A. Proceed with the interview as scheduled, assuming the personal relationship will not influence their professional judgment. Option B. Inform the candidate that they are friends and ask the candidate if they are comfortable proceeding with the interview. Option C. Discreetly try to gather information about the candidate from other colleagues to assess their qualifications without disclosing the personal relationship. Option D. Immediately report the personal relationship to their direct supervisor and the Human Resources Department to determine the appropriate next steps according to company policy. The correct answer is D. Immediately report the personal relationship to their direct supervisor and the Human Resources Department to determine the appropriate next steps according to company policy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an employee to navigate a situation where a potential conflict of interest could arise, impacting the integrity of Lowe's hiring process. The challenge lies in identifying and appropriately managing such conflicts to ensure fairness and compliance with internal policies and relevant employment laws, which are designed to prevent discrimination and uphold ethical hiring practices. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes transparency and adherence to established company policy. By immediately reporting the situation to the appropriate HR personnel, the employee demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. This action allows Lowe's to implement its conflict of interest policy, ensuring an objective and unbiased evaluation of the candidate, thereby upholding the principles of fair hiring and preventing any appearance of favoritism or impropriety. This aligns with the general principles of employment law that mandate fair and non-discriminatory hiring processes. An incorrect approach that involves proceeding with the interview without disclosure would fail to uphold ethical standards and could violate Lowe's internal conflict of interest policy. This creates a significant risk of perceived or actual bias, potentially leading to legal challenges related to discriminatory hiring practices. Another incorrect approach, such as attempting to handle the situation independently by downplaying the relationship or making a subjective judgment about its impact, bypasses established procedures and lacks the necessary oversight. This failure to follow protocol undermines the integrity of the hiring process and could result in an unfair outcome for the candidate or other applicants. It also exposes Lowe's to potential legal repercussions if the hiring decision is later scrutinized and found to be influenced by the undisclosed personal relationship. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of Lowe's code of conduct and conflict of interest policies. When faced with a potential conflict, the immediate step should be to identify the nature of the relationship and its potential to influence professional judgment. The next crucial step is to consult the relevant company policies and, if uncertainty remains or the policy dictates, to report the situation to the designated authority, typically HR or a direct supervisor. This ensures that the situation is managed according to established procedures, protecting both the employee and the company from ethical and legal breaches. Question 7. The monitoring system demonstrates a recurring, minor deviation in the performance metrics of a specific operational process, falling within a previously established acceptable tolerance range but trending towards the upper limit. Option A. Assume the monitoring system is experiencing a calibration issue and adjust its parameters without investigating the actual process performance. Option B. Initiate a detailed root cause analysis to understand the contributing factors to the trend, even though it remains within tolerance, and document findings and any minor adjustments made. Option C. Log the deviation and continue monitoring without further investigation, as it is still within the acceptable tolerance. Option D. Immediately implement a significant operational change to address the trend, assuming it indicates an impending failure. The correct answer is B. Initiate a detailed root cause analysis to understand the contributing factors to the trend, even though it remains within tolerance, and document findings and any minor adjustments made. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a nuanced understanding of how to interpret and act upon data generated by a monitoring system, particularly when that data might indicate potential noncompliance or operational inefficiencies without being definitively conclusive. The core difficulty lies in balancing proactive intervention with the risk of overreaction or misinterpretation, which could lead to unnecessary disruptions or resource misallocation. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between minor deviations and significant risks that warrant immediate attention. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven investigation before implementing corrective actions. This aligns with the principles of due diligence and responsible operational management. By first verifying the anomaly and understanding its root cause, professionals ensure that any subsequent actions are targeted, effective, and proportionate. This methodical process minimizes the risk of false positives and avoids unnecessary disruption to operations, thereby upholding efficiency and potentially preventing regulatory scrutiny by demonstrating a controlled and informed response. An incorrect approach that immediately triggers a full-scale remediation without verification fails to adhere to principles of proportionality and efficiency. This could lead to wasted resources and operational downtime based on a potentially erroneous alert. It also risks creating a culture of alarmism rather than one of informed problem solving. Another incorrect approach that involves ignoring the anomaly until it escalates represents a failure of proactive risk management and a disregard for the potential implications of the monitoring system's findings. This could lead to significant operational failures or regulatory breaches that could have been prevented with timely intervention. A third incorrect approach that involves making assumptions about the cause without investigation bypasses critical analytical steps, leading to potentially ineffective or even counterproductive solutions. This demonstrates a lack of rigor and a failure to apply sound professional judgment. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with acknowledging and logging the alert. This is followed by an initial assessment to determine the severity and potential impact of the anomaly. If the initial assessment indicates a potential issue, the next step is to gather more information and investigate the root cause. This might involve consulting system logs, cross-referencing with other data sources, or seeking input from relevant subject matter experts. Only after a thorough understanding of the cause and impact is established should appropriate corrective or preventive actions be determined and implemented. This iterative process of assessment, investigation, and action ensures that responses are informed, efficient, and aligned with best practices. Question 8. Strategic planning requires a proactive approach to managing unexpected disruptions in the supply chain that impact product availability. When faced with a sudden shortage of key components for popular seasonal items, what is the most effective course of action to balance immediate customer demand with long-term operational efficiency and inventory health? Option A. Conduct a thorough analysis of current inventory levels, sales forecasts, and supplier lead times to determine the feasibility of expediting existing orders or identifying alternative, readily available products that can substitute for the affected items. Option B. Delay fulfilling all customer orders for the affected seasonal items until the supply chain issues are fully resolved, without exploring any interim solutions or alternative product offerings. Option C. Immediately place large, expedited orders for all affected SKUs from any available supplier to ensure immediate stock replenishment, regardless of current inventory or future demand projections. Option D. Prioritize fulfilling orders only for the highest margin seasonal items, while temporarily discontinuing the availability of lower margin, but still in-demand products to conserve available stock. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough analysis of current inventory levels, sales forecasts, and supplier lead times to determine the feasibility of expediting existing orders or identifying alternative, readily available products that can substitute for the affected items. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in retail environments where rapid changes in consumer demand and supply chain disruptions necessitate agile responses. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need to fulfill customer orders with the long-term strategic goal of maintaining efficient inventory management and avoiding excessive waste or obsolescence. The pressure to act quickly can lead to suboptimal decisions if not guided by a clear understanding of operational capabilities and potential downstream impacts. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a multifaceted strategy that prioritizes data-driven decision-making and cross-functional collaboration. By analyzing current inventory levels, sales forecasts, and supplier lead times, a more informed decision can be made about whether to expedite existing orders or explore alternative sourcing. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that operational adjustments are grounded in factual data and consider the broader implications for the supply chain and financial performance. It also reflects a commitment to responsible inventory management, minimizing potential waste, and adhering to principles of operational efficiency, which are implicitly valued in a retail hiring assessment. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately placing large, expedited orders for all affected SKUs without a thorough analysis of current stock or future demand. This represents a failure in prudent inventory management and could lead to overstocking, increased carrying costs, and potential obsolescence if demand shifts again. Ethically, it could be seen as a disregard for resource optimization. Another incorrect approach is to simply delay fulfilling orders until the supply chain normalizes, without exploring any interim solutions. This demonstrates a lack of proactivity and could significantly damage customer satisfaction and brand reputation, potentially violating implicit customer service expectations. It also fails to leverage available data to mitigate the impact. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize fulfilling only the highest margin items, disregarding lower margin but still in-demand products. This demonstrates a short-sighted financial focus that neglects the overall customer experience and could alienate a broader customer base, impacting long-term loyalty and sales volume. It fails to consider the holistic impact on the business. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with defining the problem and gathering relevant data. This includes assessing current inventory, understanding demand forecasts, and evaluating supplier capabilities. Next, they should brainstorm potential solutions, considering both immediate and long-term impacts. The chosen solution should then be evaluated against key performance indicators and potential risks. Finally, continuous monitoring and adjustment are crucial, especially in dynamic environments. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are not only reactive, but also strategic and aligned with organizational goals. Question 9. Which approach would be most appropriate when a direct supervisor asks you to adjust sales figures to meet a quarterly target, implying that the current numbers are not satisfactory and need to be improved before reporting? Option A. Immediately adjust the sales figures as requested to ensure the quarterly target is met and avoid any conflict with the supervisor. Option B. Politely express concerns about the accuracy of the proposed adjustments and request clarification on the methodology, emphasizing the importance of reporting truthful data. Option C. Directly report the supervisor's request to senior management or the compliance department without first attempting to understand or resolve the issue with the supervisor. Option D. Ignore the supervisor's request and proceed with reporting the original, unadjusted sales figures without further comment. The correct answer is B. Politely express concerns about the accuracy of the proposed adjustments and request clarification on the methodology, emphasizing the importance of reporting truthful data. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing a direct request from a superior with the ethical obligation to ensure accurate and transparent reporting. The employee is put in a position where fulfilling the request could lead to misrepresentation, potentially impacting financial reporting and investor confidence, which are core tenets of ethical business conduct and regulatory compliance. The pressure to comply with a manager's directive adds a layer of complexity, as it tests an individual's commitment to integrity when faced with potential repercussions. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes ethical conduct and regulatory adherence over immediate compliance with a potentially problematic directive. By seeking clarification and expressing concerns about accuracy, the employee upholds the principles of honesty and integrity. This aligns with general ethical guidelines that emphasize transparency and the avoidance of misleading information. In a retail environment like Lowe's, accurate sales figures and inventory management are crucial for operational efficiency and financial health, and any attempt to artificially inflate these numbers would be a violation of internal policies and potentially external reporting standards if the misrepresentation were to impact broader financial statements. An incorrect approach that involves directly manipulating the data to meet the manager's request would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This action would constitute misrepresentation, potentially leading to inaccurate financial reporting, which could violate internal company policies and, in more severe cases, securities laws if the misrepresentation impacts public filings. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the request and proceed without addressing the discrepancy, is also professionally unacceptable. This inaction fails to uphold the duty of care and can be interpreted as complicity in potential wrongdoing. It also misses an opportunity to correct a misunderstanding or prevent a harmful action. A third incorrect approach, which is to immediately report the manager to higher authorities without attempting to resolve the issue directly, might be seen as an overreaction and could damage professional relationships unnecessarily, though it is less ethically problematic than direct misrepresentation. However, it bypasses a standard process of seeking clarification and resolution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, understand the request and its implications thoroughly. Second, If there are ethical or accuracy concerns, seek clarification from the requesting party. Third, if clarification does not resolve the concerns, express those concerns professionally and clearly, citing relevant policies or principles. Fourth, if the issue remains unresolved and involves potential significant ethical or regulatory breaches, escalate the matter through appropriate internal channels, such as HR or a compliance department, following company policy. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are well considered, documented, and aligned with ethical and legal standards. Question 10. The review process indicates that a close personal friend is being considered for a promotion, and you have been asked to provide input on their performance. You are aware of some recent performance issues that have not been formally addressed, but you also know your friend is capable of performing at a higher level. You are concerned that your personal relationship might influence your objective assessment. Option A. Provide a glowing review, focusing only on your friend's strengths and downplaying any recent performance concerns to ensure they receive the promotion. Option B. Directly speak to your friend about their performance issues and offer to help them improve before the review without informing management. Option C. Report the situation to your direct supervisor or human resources, outlining your personal relationship and requesting guidance on how to proceed with providing input, ensuring an impartial evaluation. Option D. Discuss your concerns with other trusted colleagues to get their opinions on how to handle the situation before making a decision. Correct answer is C. Report the situation to your direct supervisor or human resources, outlining your personal relationship and requesting guidance on how to proceed with providing input, ensuring an impartial evaluation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it involves a conflict between a personal relationship and professional integrity, potentially impacting fairness and objectivity. The core of the dilemma lies in balancing loyalty to a colleague with the responsibility to uphold company policies and ethical standards. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation without compromising trust or creating an appearance of impropriety. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes transparency and adherence to established company policy. By reporting the situation to a supervisor or HR, the individual demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and ensures that the decision regarding the colleague's performance is made through an impartial process. This aligns with the ethical principle of fairness and the regulatory expectation of maintaining a professional and unbiased work environment. Lowe, like most organizations, has policies in place to address conflicts of interest and ensure fair evaluation processes, which this approach respects. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking the situation or downplaying its significance fails to address the potential for bias. This could lead to an unfair evaluation of the colleague, potentially harming their career prospects or, conversely, unfairly benefiting them. Such inaction could be seen as a breach of professional duty and a failure to uphold company standards, potentially violating internal policies regarding performance reviews and conflicts of interest. Another incorrect approach, such as directly intervening to influence the performance review without proper channels, creates a direct conflict of interest. This bypasses established procedures and could be perceived as favoritism or an attempt to manipulate the outcome. This undermines the integrity of the review process and could lead to disciplinary action if discovered, as it violates principles of fairness and accountability. A further incorrect approach, such as discussing the situation with other colleagues to gauge their opinions before taking action, risks spreading gossip and creating a hostile work environment. While seeking advice can be helpful, doing so in an informal and potentially indiscreet manner can lead to misunderstandings and damage professional relationships without resolving the core ethical issue. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Identifying the ethical conflict. Recognize the tension between personal relationships and professional obligations. 2. Consulting relevant policies. Review company guidelines on performance reviews, conflicts of interest, and reporting procedures. 3. Seeking guidance from appropriate channels. Escalate the situation to a supervisor, HR, or a designated ethics officer. 4. Maintaining objectivity. Ensure that any actions taken are based on facts and company policy, not personal feelings or biases. 5. Documenting actions. Keep a record of the situation and the steps taken to address it. Question 11. The analysis reveals that customer wait times at the checkout lanes have significantly increased during peak weekend hours, leading to a rise in customer complaints and a potential decrease in impulse purchases. The store manager is considering several strategies to address this issue. Which of the following represents the most effective and professionally sound approach to optimizing the checkout process? Option A. Introduce a mandatory express checkout lane for all customers, regardless of the number of items, to streamline the process for everyone. Option B. Conduct a thorough observation of the current checkout process, gather feedback from both customers and associates regarding pain points, analyze transaction data to identify specific bottlenecks, and then pilot test targeted solutions, such as adjusting staffing levels during peak times or reconfiguring the lane layout. Option C. Immediately reduce the number of open checkout lanes to consolidate staff and focus on efficiency, assuming that fewer lanes will encourage faster individual transactions. Option D. Implement a new, complex point-of-sale system that promises faster transaction processing, without extensive training for associates or pilot testing. Correct answer is D. Implement a new, complex point-of-sale system that promises faster transaction processing, without extensive training for associates or pilot testing. Explanation. The analysis reveals a scenario where a store manager is tasked with improving the efficiency of the customer checkout process at a busy Lowe's location. This is professionally challenging because it requires balancing operational improvements with customer satisfaction, employee workload, and adherence to company policies, all within a dynamic retail environment. The manager must consider how changes impact the overall customer experience and the smooth functioning of the store. The correct approach involves a systematic, data-driven method to identify bottlenecks and implement targeted solutions. This aligns with best professional practices by focusing on measurable outcomes and continuous improvement. Specifically, it involves observing current processes, gathering feedback from both customers and associates, analyzing transaction times and queue lengths, and then piloting potential solutions like optimizing staffing schedules during peak hours or reconfiguring the checkout area layout. This methodical approach ensures that changes are based on evidence, are likely to yield positive results, and are implemented with minimal disruption. It also fosters a culture of proactive problem-solving and operational excellence, which are key to long-term success in retail management. An incorrect approach would be to implement changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or personal preference without proper analysis. For instance, simply adding more cashiers without understanding the root cause of delays, e.g., slow scanning, payment processing issues, might lead to increased labor costs without significant improvement, or even create new bottlenecks elsewhere. Another incorrect approach would be to drastically alter the checkout flow without consulting with associates who execute the process daily, potentially leading to resistance, confusion, and decreased morale. Ethically, this could be seen as disregarding the expertise of frontline staff. Furthermore, making sweeping changes without piloting or testing could violate company guidelines on process implementation and risk negative impacts on customer service metrics, which are often tied to performance evaluations and can have broader implications for the store's reputation and profitability. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding the problem before proposing solutions. This involves actively listening to stakeholders, collecting and analyzing relevant data, considering the potential impact of any proposed change on all aspects of the operation, and implementing changes in a controlled, iterative manner. This ensures that decisions are informed, justifiable, and lead to sustainable improvements. Question 12. Process analysis reveals that customer checkout times at Lowe's stores are consistently exceeding target benchmarks, leading to increased customer wait times and potential dissatisfaction. Which of the following approaches would be the most effective and professionally sound method to address this issue? Option A. Conduct a detailed time-motion study of the checkout process, analyze transaction data to identify common bottlenecks, and gather customer feedback specifically on their checkout experience to inform targeted improvements. Option B. Focus solely on reducing the number of staff scheduled during peak hours to cut labor costs, believing that customers will adapt to longer waits. Option C. Implement a blanket policy requiring all customers to use self-checkout lanes, regardless of their purchase size or comfort level with technology. Option D. Immediately implement a new, more complex point-of-sale system that promises faster transactions, assuming it will resolve the issue without further investigation. Correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed time-motion study of the checkout process, analyze transaction data to identify common bottlenecks, and gather customer feedback specifically on their checkout experience to inform targeted improvements. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in retail operation, where efficiency improvements are sought without compromising customer experience or regulatory compliance. Professional challenge lies in identifying process bottlenecks and proposing solutions that are both effective and sustainable, considering the diverse needs of Lowe's customers and the operational realities of a large retail environment. It requires a balanced approach that prioritizes actionable insights over theoretical perfection. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on a systematic, data-driven method to identify and address process inefficiencies. This involves mapping the current state, identifying key performance indicators, KPI, that reflect customer satisfaction and operational flow, and then using this data to pinpoint specific areas for improvement. This aligns with best practices in process optimization, which emphasize understanding the as-is state before proposing changes. It also implicitly supports regulatory compliance by ensuring that any proposed changes are evaluated for their impact on customer service standards and operational integrity, which are often indirectly governed by consumer protection laws and industry best practices. This method promotes continuous improvement and ensures that solutions are grounded in observable reality, leading to more effective and sustainable outcomes. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach might involve implementing changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or assumptions about customer behavior. This fails to adhere to a rigorous, data-driven methodology. Ethically, it could lead to unintended negative consequences for customers, such as longer wait times or reduced product availability, which could indirectly violate consumer trust and potentially lead to complaints that could attract regulatory scrutiny if widespread. Another incorrect approach could be to focus exclusively on cost reduction without considering the impact on service quality or the customer journey. This is a failure of holistic process optimization. Regulatory frameworks, while not always explicitly dictating cost-cutting measures, do expect businesses to operate in a manner that provides reasonable service and product access. Ignoring the customer experience can lead to dissatisfaction, which can have reputational damage and, in some contexts, lead to regulatory bodies investigating potential unfair or deceptive practices if service levels fall below reasonable expectations. A third incorrect approach might be to adopt a one-size-fits-all solution across all store formats or departments without considering the unique operational characteristics and customer demographics of each. This lacks the nuanced analysis required for effective process optimization. It can lead to inefficiencies in some areas while attempting to solve problems in others, ultimately failing to achieve the desired overall improvement. This can also lead to inconsistent customer experiences, which, if severe enough, could be viewed as a failure to provide equitable service, a principle often underpinning consumer protection regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured problem-solving framework. This begins with clearly defining the problem and its scope. Next, gather relevant data through observation, customer feedback, and operational metrics. Analyze this data to identify root causes of inefficiency. Develop potential solutions, prioritizing those that are data-supported, and consider the impact on all stakeholders, especially customers. Implement the chosen solutions, monitor their effectiveness using the established KPIs, and iterate as necessary. This iterative, data-informed approach ensures that process optimization efforts are aligned with business objectives, customer expectations, and regulatory considerations. Question 13. The audit findings indicate that the current process for managing inventory returns at the distribution center is experiencing significant delays, leading to increased holding costs and customer dissatisfaction. A proposed solution involves automating a portion of the inspection and restocking steps. Which of the following approaches best balances efficiency gains with operational integrity and employee impact? Option A. Focus solely on the cost savings associated with automation, prioritizing the quickest and cheapest implementation of the new technology without further analysis of its broader operational effects. Option B. Implement the automation solution immediately to reduce backlog and demonstrate rapid improvement, with a plan to address any unforeseen issues as they arise. Option C. Introduce the automation without informing or involving the current staff responsible for handling returns, assuming they will adapt to the new system independently. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the entire returns process, including the impact of automation on existing roles, potential training needs, and the alignment with Lowe's established operational procedures and quality standards, before proceeding with any changes. The correct answer is B. Implement the automation solution immediately to reduce backlog and demonstrate rapid improvement, with a plan to address any unforeseen issues as they arise. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for efficiency with the long-term implications of process changes on employee roles and potential compliance risks. The pressure to demonstrate quick wins from process optimization can lead to overlooking critical downstream effects. Careful judgment is required to ensure that improvements are sustainable and do not inadvertently create new problems or violate established protocols. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a holistic review of the process, including its impact on all stakeholders and adherence to Lowe's operational guidelines and any relevant retail industry best practices. This approach ensures that process optimization is not just about speed or cost reduction, but also about maintaining quality, employee well-being, and operational integrity. It aligns with a commitment to continuous improvement that is both effective and responsible. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach fails to consider the impact on employee workload and morale. This can lead to decreased productivity, increased errors, and potential violations of workplace safety or labor guidelines if employees are overburdened. Ethically, it disregards the human element of process change. Another incorrect approach focuses solely on cost reduction without evaluating the potential impact on customer service or product quality. This can lead to a decline in customer satisfaction, damage to Lowe's reputation, and potential noncompliance with quality assurance standards. It prioritizes short-term financial gains over long-term business health. A third incorrect approach bypasses established change management protocols. This can result in inconsistent implementation, resistance from staff, and a failure to capture the full benefits of the optimization. It also poses a risk of introducing unintended errors or security vulnerabilities if new processes are not properly vetted and documented, potentially contravening internal control policies. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with a thorough understanding of the current process, its objectives, and its potential pain points. This should be followed by identifying potential optimization strategies, evaluating each strategy's impact on efficiency, cost, quality, customer experience, and employee well-being. Crucially, any proposed changes must be assessed against existing company policies, regulatory requirements, and ethical considerations. Pilot testing and stakeholder feedback are essential before full implementation to mitigate risks and ensure successful adoption. Question 14. During the evaluation of a customer's request to return a product purchased several months ago without a receipt, which of the following actions best demonstrates sound professional judgment and adherence to company guidelines? Option A. Ask the customer for more details about the purchase. Check if the item is in stock and in resaleable condition, and consult the store's policy on returns without proof of purchase to determine if an exception can be made with management approval. Option B. Politely explain that returns without a receipt are not possible according to company policy and offer no further assistance. Option C. Immediately process the return for store credit, assuming the customer is being truthful to maintain customer satisfaction. Option D. Suggest the customer try to find their receipt, implying they are being difficult if they cannot. The correct answer is C. Immediately process the return for store credit, assuming the customer is being truthful to maintain customer satisfaction. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a Lowe's associate to balance immediate customer needs with established company policies and ethical considerations, particularly when faced with a potentially misleading request. The associate must exercise sound judgment to avoid compromising the company's integrity or customer trust. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the situation and adherence to established procedures. By seeking clarification and verifying information before acting, the associate upholds Lowe's commitment to transparency and fair dealing. This aligns with ethical principles of honesty and integrity, ensuring that decisions are based on accurate information and not on assumptions or pressure. It also reflects a responsible approach to resource management, preventing potential losses or policy violations. An incorrect approach that involves immediately agreeing to the customer's request without verification fails to uphold the principle of due diligence. This could lead to a violation of Lowe's return policy or even facilitate fraudulent activity, creating an ethical failure and potential financial loss for the company. Another incorrect approach, such as dismissing the customer's request outright without attempting to understand their situation or explore alternatives, demonstrates poor customer service and a lack of empathy, which can damage the company's reputation. A third incorrect approach, which involves making an exception based solely on the customer's insistence without proper authorization or a clear policy basis, undermines the consistency and fairness of company policies and could set a precedent for future policy abuse. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that involves 1. Active listening and information gathering. Understand the customer's request and the underlying reasons. 2. Policy review. Consult relevant company policies and guidelines. 3. Verification. If necessary, verify information with a supervisor or through established channels. 4. Problem solving. Explore all available options within policy to find a mutually agreeable solution. 5. Communication. Clearly communicate the decision and the reasoning to the customer. Question 15. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood and moderate impact for a potential disruption in the inventory management system, affecting product availability during peak sales periods. However, the proposed mitigation strategy involves a significant upfront investment that would delay the rollout of a new customer loyalty program. What is the most professionally sound approach to managing this situation? Option A. Implement the mitigation strategy for the inventory system immediately, even if it means delaying the loyalty program, to ensure operational stability and prevent potential customer dissatisfaction. Option B. Reevaluate the risk matrix to see if the inventory system disruption can be reclassified as a lower priority to justify proceeding with the loyalty program without immediate mitigation. Option C. Proceed with the loyalty program rollout as planned and monitor the inventory system closely, addressing any disruptions only if they become critical. Option D. Implement a partial, less costly mitigation for the inventory system and proceed with the loyalty program, accepting a slightly elevated risk of disruption. The correct answer is A. Implement the mitigation strategy for the inventory system immediately, even if it means delaying the loyalty program, to ensure operational stability and prevent potential customer dissatisfaction. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing immediate operational needs with long-term strategic risk management. The risk matrix, a standard tool in many business environments, including retail operations like Lowe's, is designed to help prioritize mitigation efforts. However, relying solely on the matrix without considering the qualitative aspects of a risk can lead to suboptimal decisions. The challenge lies in interpreting the data within the matrix and applying it to a real-world situation where human factors and potential cascading effects are significant. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it involves a holistic assessment that goes beyond the quantitative scoring of the risk matrix. It acknowledges that while a risk might appear moderate in terms of likelihood and impact on paper, its potential to disrupt customer experience, damage brand reputation, or lead to regulatory scrutiny, even if not explicitly detailed in the matrix, warrants a more proactive and comprehensive response. This aligns with general business ethics and risk management principles that emphasize due diligence and a precautionary approach when significant operational or reputational risks are identified. In the context of a hiring assessment, this demonstrates an understanding of how to apply theoretical frameworks to practical business challenges. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the immediate cost savings of not implementing a mitigation strategy, despite the risk matrix indicating a moderate concern, fails to account for the potential for indirect costs. These could include lost sales due to customer dissatisfaction, increased employee turnover if the issue impacts morale, or even minor regulatory noncompliance that could escalate. This approach demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to adhere to sound risk management principles, potentially violating an implicit ethical obligation to maintain operational integrity and customer trust. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes a different, seemingly higher-ranked risk on the matrix without adequately addressing the moderate risk in question, overlooks the interconnectedness of operational issues. A moderate risk, if left unaddressed, can sometimes evolve into a more significant problem or exacerbate other existing risks. This demonstrates a failure to conduct a thorough impact assessment that considers the potential for a risk to grow or interact with other vulnerabilities, which is a fundamental aspect of effective risk management. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the context and limitations of any assessment tool, such as a risk matrix. 2. Evaluating the quantitative data from the tool alongside qualitative factors, including potential reputational damage, customer impact, and ethical considerations. 3. Considering the potential for a risk to escalate or interact with other business functions. 4. Developing a mitigation strategy that is proportionate to the assessed risk, considering both immediate and long-term consequences. 5. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind the chosen course of action. Question 16. Benchmark analysis indicates that Lowe's is considering introducing a new line of home decor products. To ensure responsible business practices, which of the following approaches would be most appropriate for assessing the potential environmental impact of this new product line? Option A. Focus solely on the potential for the products to be recycled at the point of disposal, as this is the most visible environmental concern for consumers. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive life cycle assessment, LCA, of the new product line, from raw material extraction and manufacturing to distribution, consumer use, and end-of-life disposal, engaging with environmental experts and relevant stakeholders to identify and quantify potential impacts. Option C. Rely on the company's historical experience with similar product lines and assume that the environmental impacts will be negligible without further investigation. Option D. Prioritize the selection of materials that are cheapest to source, assuming that cost-effectiveness will inherently lead to environmentally sound choices. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive life cycle assessment, LCA, of the new product line, from raw material extraction and manufacturing to distribution, consumer use, and end-of-life disposal, engaging with environmental experts and relevant stakeholders to identify and quantify potential impacts. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for operational efficiency with the long-term implications of potential environmental impacts. Lowe's, as a large retailer, has a responsibility to its stakeholders, including customers, employees, and the community, to operate sustainably. The decision-making process must consider not only cost-effectiveness, but also compliance with environmental regulations and ethical considerations regarding corporate social responsibility. Challenge lies in identifying the most comprehensive and responsible approach to assessing the impact of a new product line, ensuring that all relevant factors are considered without oversimplification. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it adopts a holistic and proactive stance towards environmental impact assessment. It acknowledges that a thorough understanding of potential consequences, both direct and indirect, is crucial for responsible business operations. This approach aligns with the principles of environmental stewardship and regulatory compliance, which are increasingly important for corporate reputation and long-term viability. By considering the entire life cycle of the product and engaging with relevant stakeholders, Lowe's demonstrates a commitment to minimizing its environmental footprint and adhering to best practices in corporate sustainability. This aligns with general principles of responsible business conduct and the expectation that companies will proactively manage their environmental responsibilities. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach fails to consider the full life cycle of the product, focusing only on immediate disposal. This is a regulatory and ethical failure because it ignores potential environmental impacts during manufacturing, transportation, and use, which can be significant and are often subject to specific environmental regulations. It represents a narrow and potentially non-compliant view of environmental responsibility. Another incorrect approach prioritizes cost savings over environmental considerations. This is a significant ethical failure and a potential regulatory risk. While cost-effectiveness is important, It should not come at the expense of environmental protection or compliance. Many environmental regulations are in place to prevent harm, and prioritizing cost over these can lead to fines, reputational damage, and long-term environmental liabilities. A third incorrect approach relies solely on anecdotal evidence and past practices without a structured assessment. This is professionally unacceptable because it lacks the rigor required for a proper impact assessment. It is prone to bias, overlooks potential new or evolving environmental risks, and may not meet the standards expected by regulatory bodies or stakeholders for due diligence. It fails to establish a defensible basis for decision-making. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach impact assessment by first identifying the scope of the assessment, which includes defining the boundaries of the analysis, e.g., product lifecycle, geographical area. Next, they should gather relevant data from reliable sources, considering both direct and indirect impacts. This involves understanding applicable environmental regulations and industry best practices. A critical step is to analyze the potential impacts, evaluating their significance and likelihood. Finally, professionals should develop mitigation strategies and a monitoring plan to manage identified risks and ensure ongoing compliance and responsible operation. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with ethical and regulatory expectations. Question 17. Regulatory review indicates that Lowe's associates are expected to provide helpful and safe product recommendations. A customer approaches an associate in the ladder aisle and states they want to purchase a specific 6-foot step ladder. However, based on the customer's apparent height and the typical tasks they might perform with such a ladder, the associate has a concern that this particular ladder might not be the safest or most appropriate choice for the customer's needs. What is the most professional and responsible course of action for the associate? Option A. Politely inform the customer that the 6-foot step ladder is not suitable for them and steer them towards a taller, more expensive ladder without further explanation. Option B. Suggest the customer look at other options on their own, as the associate is not qualified to determine the best ladder for their specific needs. Option C. Immediately recommend the 6-foot step ladder the customer asked for, as the customer is always right and their preference should be honored. Option D. Ask the customer clarifying questions about how they intend to use the ladder and what tasks they need it for. Then recommend the most suitable and safe option based on their answers, which may or may not be the initially requested ladder. The correct answer is D. Ask the customer clarifying questions about how they intend to use the ladder and what tasks they need it for. Then recommend the most suitable and safe option based on their answers, which may or may not be the initially requested ladder. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a customer's stated preference and a potential safety concern. A Lowe's associate must balance customer satisfaction with the company's obligation to provide safe and appropriate product recommendations. Failing to address the safety aspect could lead to product misuse, customer injury, and potential liability for Lowe's. Conversely, dismissing the customer's preference outright without understanding their needs could result in a lost sale and a negative customer experience. Careful judgment is required to navigate this delicate balance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes customer safety while still aiming to meet the customer's underlying need. By asking clarifying questions about the intended use of the ladder, the associate can determine if the customer's initial choice is indeed suitable or if a different type of ladder would be safer and more effective. This demonstrates adherence to product safety guidelines and a commitment to customer well-being, which are implicit in retail operations and customer service standards. It also aligns with the ethical responsibility to provide accurate and safe product advice. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately recommending the ladder the customer requested without further inquiry. This fails to uphold the professional responsibility to assess product suitability and potential safety risks. It could lead to the customer purchasing a ladder that is inappropriate for their task, potentially causing injury and violating implicit safety standards. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the customer's request outright and insist on a different ladder without understanding their reasoning or intended use. This demonstrates poor customer service, disregards the customer's autonomy, and can lead to frustration and a negative perception of Lowe's. It fails to explore the customer's needs and may alienate them. A third incorrect approach is to focus solely on upselling a more expensive ladder without addressing the customer's initial request or safety concerns. While upselling can be a sales tactic, it should not come at the expense of customer safety or by ignoring their stated needs. This approach prioritizes profit over responsible product recommendation and customer welfare. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a customer-centric approach that begins with active listening and understanding the customer's needs. When a potential safety concern arises, the next step is to gather more information through open-ended questions to assess the situation accurately. This information should then be used to provide informed recommendations that balance customer preference with safety and suitability. If a customer's initial choice poses a risk, it is the professional's duty to explain the risks clearly and offer safer alternatives, justifying the recommendation based on the gathered information and product knowledge. Question 18. The performance metrics show a consistent decline in sales associate Sarah Chen's key performance indicators, KPI, over the past 2 quarters, specifically in customer engagement time and average transaction value. Her manager, David, has observed this trend and is concerned about its impact on team targets. David recalls a brief, informal chat with Sarah a few months ago where he mentioned her sales numbers were a bit low, but no formal plan was put in place. He is now considering his next steps to address this ongoing issue. Option A. Terminate Sarah's employment immediately, citing the declining performance metrics as sufficient cause without further discussion or documentation. Option B. Immediately issue a formal written warning to Sarah, outlining the specific performance deficiencies and the consequences of continued underperformance, while also scheduling a meeting to discuss a performance improvement plan with clear, measurable goals and a defined timeline for review. Option C. Publicly address Sarah's performance during the next team meeting, highlighting the importance of meeting sales targets and using her situation as an example to motivate others. Option D. Continue to monitor Sarah's performance without any further direct intervention, hoping that her performance will naturally improve over time without specific feedback or support. The correct answer is B. Immediately issue a formal written warning to Sarah, outlining the specific performance deficiencies and the consequences of continued underperformance, while also scheduling a meeting to discuss a performance improvement plan with clear, measurable goals and a defined timeline for review. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need to address underperformance with the long-term implications of employee morale, development, and adherence to Lowe's internal policies and relevant employment laws. The manager must act decisively yet fairly, ensuring that any intervention is well documented, objective, and aligned with company standards for performance management. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it follows a structured, progressive disciplinary process. This process typically begins with clear communication of expectations, followed by documented feedback and support for improvement. If performance does not improve, it escalates to formal warnings and, ultimately, potential termination, all while ensuring fairness and compliance with Lowe's HR policies and any applicable U.S. labor laws regarding employee termination. This method minimizes legal risk and promotes a culture of accountability and development. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate termination without prior documented steps would be professionally unacceptable due to potential legal repercussions, such as wrongful termination claims. It fails to provide the employee with a fair opportunity to improve and violates standard HR best practices. Another incorrect approach that involves informal, undocumented conversations about performance, without clear objectives or timelines for improvement, is also professionally unsound. This lack of documentation makes it difficult to justify any subsequent disciplinary action and can lead to perceptions of favoritism or arbitrary decision-making, potentially violating principles of fairness and equal treatment. A third incorrect approach that involves public criticism of the employee's performance in front of colleagues is unethical and unprofessional. It creates a hostile work environment, damages the employee's reputation, and undermines team cohesion, violating principles of respect and dignity in the workplace. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes objective assessment, adherence to established policies, and fair treatment. This involves understanding the employee's role and performance expectations, gathering concrete evidence of underperformance, consulting with HR to ensure compliance with company policy and legal requirements, and implementing a documented, progressive performance improvement plan. Throughout the process, maintaining open communication and providing support are crucial. Question 19. The control framework reveals a customer attempting to return a product outside the standard 90-day return window, citing a recent discovery of a defect. The associate is aware of the policy but also recognizes the customer's genuine frustration and the potential for a negative review. The associate must decide how to proceed. Option A. Refuse the return outright, citing the policy and offer no further assistance. Option B. Politely explain the return policy and offer to help the customer find a replacement part or a repair service, while also noting the policy limitation. Option C. Immediately process the return as a goodwill gesture to ensure customer satisfaction, overriding the standard policy. Option D. Suggest the customer contact the manufacturer directly for a warranty claim, without offering any Lowe's assistance. The correct answer is B. Politely explain the return policy and offer to help the customer find a replacement part or a repair service, while also noting the policy limitation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate potential conflicts between established company policies and the practical realities of a customer interaction, while remaining compliant with consumer protection regulations. The core of the challenge lies in balancing customer satisfaction with adherence to the Lowe's return policy and ensuring fair treatment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes clear communication, adherence to established policy, and offering alternative solutions within the bounds of company guidelines and consumer protection laws. This demonstrates integrity, fairness, and a commitment to upholding both company standards and customer rights. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of transparency and fairness expected in retail environments, ensuring customers are informed of policy limitations while still being offered reasonable recourse. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on appeasing the customer without regard for policy risks setting a precedent for policy circumvention and could lead to inconsistent application of rules, potentially creating future disputes. This could be seen as a failure to uphold company policy and could lead to financial losses or operational inefficiencies. Another incorrect approach that rigidly enforces the policy without exploring any customer-centric solutions, even when a minor deviation might be justifiable and within the spirit of good customer service, fails to demonstrate empathy and could result in a negative customer experience and damage to Lowe's reputation. This could also be perceived as a lack of discretion and an unwillingness to adapt to unique situations, potentially bordering on unfair treatment if the customer's situation warrants consideration. The professional reasoning process for similar situations involves 1. Understanding the core policy and its intent. 2. Actively listening to the customer's situation to grasp their perspective. 3. Assessing if the situation warrants any flexibility within policy guidelines or if a reasonable alternative can be offered. 4. Communicating the policy and any proposed solutions clearly and respectfully. 5. Documenting the interaction and resolution as per company procedures. This systematic approach ensures fairness, compliance, and customer satisfaction. Question 20. Implementation of a new customer loyalty program at Lowe's requires employees to collect specific customer information at the point of sale. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with data privacy regulations and ethical customer data handling? Option A. Training employees on the specific data points required for the loyalty program, the purpose of collection, how the data will be stored and protected, and the consequences of misuse, while also emphasizing that sales targets should not override privacy protocols. Option B. Encouraging employees to collect as much customer information as possible to enhance personalization, with the understanding that security will handle any privacy concerns. Option C. Relying solely on the IT department to implement security measures that will automatically prevent any unauthorized access or misuse of customer data collected by sales associates. Option D. Providing employees with a brief overview of data privacy during onboarding and trusting them to use their best judgment when collecting information. The correct answer is D. Providing employees with a brief overview of data privacy during onboarding and trusting them to use their best judgment when collecting information. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to managing customer data privacy and security within the context of retail operations. The core difficulty lies in balancing the desire to personalize customer experiences and drive sales with the imperative to comply with data protection regulations. Employees may not fully grasp the nuances of what constitutes permissible data collection and usage, leading to potential breaches or misuse. The pressure to meet sales targets can also incentivize shortcuts that compromise privacy. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes proactive training and clear policy adherence. This aligns with the principles of data protection regulations, which mandate that organizations implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to protect personal data. Specifically, it reflects the responsibility of employers to ensure their staff are adequately trained on data handling procedures and understand the legal and ethical implications of their actions. This approach fosters a culture of compliance and minimizes the risk of accidental or intentional data misuse, thereby safeguarding customer trust and avoiding regulatory penalties. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves assuming that general awareness of data privacy is sufficient. This fails to meet the regulatory requirement for specific, role-based training on data handling. It creates a significant risk of employees misunderstanding or misapplying privacy principles, leading to potential violations. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize sales over data privacy protocols. This directly contravenes data protection laws that place strict limits on how personal data can be collected, processed, and used. Such a practice not only exposes the company to legal repercussions, but also erodes customer confidence and brand reputation. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on IT security measures without addressing employee behavior and understanding. While robust IT security is crucial, it is not a substitute for informed and compliant human action. Data breaches can occur due to human error or negligence, even with strong technical safeguards in place. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to data management. This involves identifying potential data privacy risks, assessing their likelihood and impact, and implementing controls to mitigate them. A key component of this is continuous employee education and reinforcement of policies. When faced with competing priorities, such as sales targets versus data privacy, professionals must refer to established policies and regulatory guidelines. If there is ambiguity, seeking clarification from legal or compliance departments is essential. The ultimate goal is to embed data privacy considerations into all business processes, ensuring that customer data is handled responsibly and ethically at every touchpoint.